I want to tell you about Texas radio and the big beat. It was a warm summer night with our song playing on the radio.
Welcome back to today's edition of I Remember Radio. This is going to be the first of a few with the boss of KFXM, Al Anthony. Boss, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike and Billy. And as I said earlier, good to have the band back together again. Maybe we can get some higher ratings than we had before. I have first in line, I guess, is Don Elliot. That's with
Hello.
one T at the end. Dick Lyons and Jhani Kaye.
Hey, so good to see you, Al.
Good to see you, Guy.
You too, Al.
Who's going to start? Who has a story?
Whoa, stories, my gosh.
I have a story. If you don't want to do it, I will. Halloween. I don't know how Al came up with this, but we trick-or-treated for those who can't. And we were doing a remote in front of a big box store, pretty close to the station. And the promotion was for Children's Hospital in San Bernardino, all the kids that were bedridden and couldn't get out on Halloween. And we asked over the air for kids that were trick-or-treating and had bags of candy to come and donate it. And I don't know how many hundreds of pounds. I was there till late hours and cars pulling up everywhere every time I cracked the mic to ask people to come by and trick-or-treat for those who can't. And I wondered, Al, how did you think of that? Where did that idea come from?
The first time I did it was for March of Dimes. And that's where I got the idea. And then I recruited the poster boy in his crutches and so on for the March of Dimes. And he came and joined us in Bakersfield on a street corner remote. And I called it the tape of dimes, but it wasn't dimes. So I had cash register tape. And so I started streaming it out on the ground and attaching money to it. So if anybody gave us money, we kept doing it. And we kept the tote board going. And the last time I remember, but it was not anywhere near the end, the tape was probably about a couple of blocks long at least.
Wow.
And it was a really a success. And so a lot of my early stuff I did for the March of Dimes.
The trick-or-treat, that was pure genius. And what I want to acknowledge is that you are the source of all the promotions and things we did. And you also left us a blank canvas in which to work on. It wasn't so blank with the Tiger Radio and the Tiger Mag and all the fun stuff that you thought of.
Al could make a contest out of anything.
You're right. Tell them the one you like.
He would ask people to guess what color socks he was wearing.
Yeah.
You can't verify that. You could be anything. And Al was honest. He was always right. But I always had to check what socks he was wearing that morning. He was going to do it every single day.
And it went on forever. And the phones would light up and everything would go crazy. And stupid little thing like that.
Well, people just loved hearing their names on there. They won. The prizes weren't really terrific. Jim Conniff put together the prize packages. I think you didn't like the top 40. Here's the bottom 40, a 6-pack of bad jazz. And that's what you get. Remember that? Or certificates for the Colonel Sanders. Some of them were okay.
I remember another one. I can't remember what it was for, but we gave away your height in records. So we took a doll and put like 6 feet of records on them, and whoever won that got to hold their height in records. It's forget to say that they're all turkeys that we didn't use. We just millions that we got all the time every week. I used to get 300 records a week.
Wow.
And at one time, even back to Bakersfield, I used to listen to at least a part of every single one of them, both sides.
Oh my goodness.
And I was just looking for a cue or a lick or something that would get my attention. The best one I can remember is "Do You Love Me" by the Contours. And I was the first one to ever play that because it was from
Motown.
Detroit. Yeah, from Detroit. And it had never been played outside of Detroit.
Great top of the hour. It comes on like gangbusters.
Yeah. And I gave the record and I told Gil Bogus, Gil, there's a record you ought to find out about and get in touch with him and get so you can distribute the record for him. And he said, okay, what is it? I sent it to him. And he called me back and he just lit up like a radio beacon. And it became a hit everywhere. And I keep wondering every time I think of Berry Gordy, that where's my damn money? And the same with Gil Bogus. He made enough money on that. He has his own construction company in LA. He's still there.
Jhani, do you have something?
Oh, I just want to say it was a dream to work at KFXM. What made it even better was working with Al Anthony and having his blessing. And I'll never forget, I came in with a tape to Doug Collins' office, and Doug listened to it, and he walked it into Al. And Al had to give his blessing because we know who was the real program director at all time, you know. And it was, Dick, to allude to what you were saying before, it was the kind of radio station that you hung around before and after your show, and you couldn't wait to get in on your next shift because Al made it special. And I have a quick Dick Lyons story. You thought we hadn't met before this little broadcast here, Dick, but I was at UCLA and I'm in between classes sitting on a wall studying a book. And I'm not looking up, but I hear this guy speak. This voice goes by me and I know this voice. And I just yell out loud, Dick Lyons. And you turned around and you were walking by and I introduced myself and he says, hey, when I told you my name, you said, I heard a tape of yours. You were pretty good. And that meant the world to me, Dick.
Oh, thank you.
I've never forgotten that.
Thank you. That's a good memory. I saw Jhani win the Program Director of the Year award from the LA Broadcasters or the RAB. Maybe it was the RAB in Vegas. And I was blown away because I was a Coast fan at the time. And I think you won it 3 years in a row. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I got the NAB award 3 times in a row. That was fun. But it was because of my experience at KFXM that set me on the programming path. You know, I wanted to figure out why things worked and didn't. And although Al and I didn't get to sit down as much as I wanted because he was typically gone by the time I had my nighttime shift, it was just inspiring, always a good experience. And so many of Chris Roberts in particular, he and I were buds, and we couldn't think higher of another individual than you, Al.
God, that really makes me blush, but I'm proud of you guys because you all went through and you did well, and we did have fun and did a lot of stuff that was like off the cuff. Whatever occurred, I just kind of did it.
Al was key to so many things. If I hadn't met Al and he had hired me, I wouldn't have ended up working for Jhani in LA. Do you remember, Al, the tape that I sent you? Interesting decisions you made on who to hire and why at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the story about the box?
Yeah, you tell it. It's your idea.
Well, I wanted to get out of Washington. I was in D.C. for 5 minutes, and we knew that the whole staff was going to get canned. So my program director, Dave McNamee, said, why don't you send a tape to California? K-Man and KFXM are having a battle out there. And I scrounged up I actually went out and bought a new box instead of putting tape over an old box. And Al said it's the only clean box that he got. That's why I listened to my tape.
And it was good. And the next thing I know, he wound up in San Bernardino. You know, I started a lot of the stuff that I did in Bakersfield, and I had complete reign there. And that Kathy was such a flamethrower. I mean, we blasted all the way out the San Joaquin Valley. You could hear it in parts of LA. You could hear it in Fresno. And it was wild. And so we used to throw a lot of hops out on the coast of Tascadero, Paso Robles, because they were our regular fans.
550 on the AM dial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that Howard did. He always looked for a good frequency with a station that was on its ass. And Caffey certainly was before he got there, and so was KFXM.
How did you find Howard, or did Howard find you? What was your relationship?
Yeah.
Okay. Ben Pascal used to be the sales manager for Gordon McClendon's Liberty Network. It was a first sports network. And it didn't really make it. So he got together and found about KFXM being for sale. So he got John Hearn because he knows he was a lawyer, a FCC lawyer. And then he got Howard Tullis because he knows he was a big bullshit artist and a con man. So that made a good trio.
In an ad agency.
Yeah. And he had, I'll tell you a couple of things about the ad agency pretty soon. But so I was in Oceanside. I helped put that station on the air in 1956. And that's my first radio station between Los Angeles and San Diego. Before that, everybody had to listen to each other's station going out over the ocean. And we put that on and we just absolutely just killed that area. I mean, it was wild. And so it sold immediately. Each of the guys put in $10,000, 10 guys, and they built the radio station with that. And they were all local businessmen. So they had a way to advertise. They had to pay for it, of course, but we had special rates. And but anyway, after 1 year, they just sold it for such a fortune, you can't believe it. And the guy that bought it was a guy named Maurice Zenoff. He was a hustler like you can't believe. He had just run one of the first TV stations in Las Vegas. And that was one where you had a business, you're selling shoes, come on in and do your own commercials on the air and tell us about your shoes. And that's how we ran that TV station. It was all automated. Camera was right in the middle. And so all you had to do was go and stand in front of the camera and make your pitch. Anyway, so he wasn't a very good guy. My shift he fired everybody in the station but me. My shift turned from 3 hours a day to 10.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was on the first part of the day, 6 to 4. And then Dan Spear drove up from the valley and did 4 to midnight. And that was it. And so it got unbearable, though. It was awful. We started rock. That was the first time I ever played rock. It was just about 1957. And we just jumped on that wagon and away it went. So Pascal was the leader. It was Pascal, Tullis, and Hearn. So they had the interest in Caffey, KFXM, KWIZ, and a station in Fresno.
KDUO too?
Oh, well, yeah, and KDUO, but that came later. That came in 69, I think. Anyway, so they left Ben to manage Caffey. And those two, I can't even say the word. I mean, Howard Tullis and John Hearn. They conspired to get Pascal out of there because they didn't like him at all. And once he did his job, who needs him? See, so they went to Bakersfield and they found out that he had traded a piano out for his house on the station, and he didn't tell them about it. Right? So over that, they said, Ben, that's a pretty serious thing you did. You could go to jail for that. Or we could even tell the FCC about it. And at that time, everybody crapped when they said FCC. So they gave him their interest in KEZY for his interest in Caffey and KFXM. They got him out of there, and that's how. But Pascal hired me from Oceanside to go to San Bernardino, and I got there, and he said, "Yeah, Al, well, I wanted to work here, but I'm having a problem in Bakersfield, and I really would like you to go up there." You son of a bitch. Bakersfield, everybody ever said that's the hottest place on the planet and everything bad about it. It was bad when I got there. All I had was gas in my car. I just had gone through a crappy divorce. And all I had was my clothes in my car, the car with the payments, and a couple of bucks in my pocket. I didn't even have enough money to leave town. So I rolled up my sleeves and I said, okay. I went down the street and I bought a hamburger and a Coke and French fries for 25 cents. And I walked down the street and I conned a lady who owned an apartment into letting me move in there with no money. I said, I just work up at the station. I mean, at the street at the station. So she said, well, you look like a pretty honest guy. Boo. Anyway, I was up there, and 6 years later, I got out of there. But it was the best part of my career in my whole life, because I went from nothing. I took a shit bag of the station, and it was so nasty ass dirty, like there were gray and black tiles on the floor. It looked like it was all like tan, gray. It was that much dirt on the floors. I walked into the back to the restroom, and oh, God, that's the worst, brownest looking room I've ever seen in my life, and stink. It was awful. So I took a couple bucks that I had. I went down to the store, bought some cleaning supplies, went back. I cleaned the toilet. I cleaned the sink. I painted the walls. I cleaned the floors in the control room, and started from there.
It was always clean where you went. In fact, when I got to town, you even took me into Hollywood to get a haircut.
And then I probably used to holler at you, because I always used to hate, the guys would leave coffee cups, rings, ashtrays, and donut juice everywhere on the console, leftover cigarette butts, and I hated that. So I'd say, Don, that stuff is on your console. You're going to have to, you can't leave it like that for me. You have to clean it before you leave. So it's
He
not
followed
mine.
me, but I didn't smoke.
Yeah. Well, he said, it's not mine. I said, oh, yes, it is. I said, did you tell the guy before you to clean it up? He said, no. I said, then it's yours. So I did that forever, and all the rest of my time at the console.
So cut to, how did you get to Hollywood? How did you get back?
Well, they had Caffey for sale. So I forgot who bought it. Oh,
Eastman.
Who?
Eastman bought it when
the guys from Eastman bought it. And he said, Al, he said, oh, we got to do something to make this station worth a little more. He said, I'd like you to go to your friends in Hollywood and get me all the single records you can. I said, oh, okay. So I went down there, and I went to see a couple of my friends, and I had the station wagon, and I filled that station wagon up with thousands of 45 records that were all, crap that was left over from runs and so on. So we took it in there. We put it in the kitchen, where which is like the engineer's room, but it was the kitchen that didn't have water in it. And we put it in the shelves, and there we had over. He got an extra $100,000 for for the station because of the value of the records, $1 a piece. I really should write a book about him, but I got too many other books to write. So we were coming back from San Bernardino, John and Howard. Howard was driving. I was crapping my pants because I was so scared to ride with him. You know what he would do when he was in a hurry? He had stopped at a red light in Hollywood. He turned onto the sidewalk to go to the next street over to get away from the stoplight. At one time, he ran over a guy doing that.
Oh, my God.
Whoa.
And he was afraid they were going to sue him and so on like that. So he sent him up to me to be a salesman. He said, "Well, take care of this guy. You can make a salesman out of him." So, and that kept him from being sued by the guy's parents.
You told me on our last interview that you were sorry that you spent 3 years in Hollywood because you felt you were more valuable at KFXM.
Yes, that's what he said. We were coming back from San Bernardino, and they were quiet for a long, long time. And the station was in such shape. K-Men had come on board and kicked their ass so bad. And Roy Cordell had just hooked up that radio station with 3-minute commercials and corny stuff that he stole from KCKC or KAKC. And he had a little doctor's bag full of that stuff, and he kept pulling it out. Howard thought he was a genius. He's just a big, stupid oaf. He's gone now. And so he would go to Bakersfield and see me up there, and he'd see something I was doing. He'd go down to San Bernardino and put it on the air and tell Howard, "Tell us, look what we're doing in San Bernardino." He said, "I got it on in Bakersfield too." God, it was tough. So anyway, they were quiet for a long time, and Howard said, "Al, oh no, what's this going to be?" He said, "John and I have talked it over a lot." He said, "We've sold Kathy, and I'm kind of closing down my office in Hollywood and making it smaller, moving to a smaller place. We'd like you to go to San Bernardino." No, never, 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 never. So they just badgered me, and I said, okay, I'll do it for 90 days, and that's it, no matter what. So they thought that was fine. They knew they'd get me there and so on. But that's not what kept me there. You know what kept me there?
What?
Erwin Zucker threw a party at one of the bars at the Plantation at the Plantation restaurant for K-Men and KFXM together.
Uh-oh.
That's like the Coliseum and the Lyons.
I know.
That was L-I, not L-Y.
Yes, thank you.
So the guys were there, and everybody was drinking way, way too much. And the guys that came in, man, they were hot stuff. Yeah, well, it's too bad. I feel really sorry for you, Al. Bill Tanner, who used to work for me, was over there. And Gary Price, and I can't tell you how many other guys were there. And they were all at the party. And they were doing this pity party on me and saying, "God, how could you let them do that to you? You're never going to make it there. I mean, you don't have a chance." And I'm drinking. And pretty soon, I'm getting pissed. I'm getting really, really pissed. Yeah. And my wife, Doris, who's now buried under the doghouse, was with me in the car, and I was in that Mustang that I had for a year that the Ford let us borrow a 64 and a half Mustang. All the big disc jockeys in the country got one for a month to drive and then do the commercials themselves live, no recorded. What a promo, huh?
Yeah.
But they forgot picking the one up from us. So I just drove it for a year. Anyway, so I'm leaving the party. By this time, I'm just really, I'm livid. You just can't do that to me. So I'm driving and I'm pounding on the dash, bang, bang, bang. My wife was sitting far away from me. And I said, "Those lousy sons of bitches, I'll drive every one of them in town. And I wasn't going to stay here, but I'll stay here until it's done." And so
Best thing could have happened. That's good.
Yes, yeah, it did, and that was it. I got, especially Bill Tanner. I brought him from Phoenix and hired him in Bakersfield, and then brought him to San Bernardino, and then he turned around and turned on me, which is okay, his right to do that. But that pity party, I can still feel just like when the hollering at Dick for being late every morning.
So, Al, how long did it take for you to, pummel K-Men?
About 45 days.
Wow.
Really?
We did it with less equipment. We did it with lesser jocks. We did it with lesser voices. We just did it with socks, theater passes, and bullshit. It just really
Constant
worked.
contest.
Yeah,
Constant contest.
yeah. Well, I gave away a free funeral for every year at 4th of July.
A free funeral?
Yeah, yeah. I had a deal I made with a funeral owner director, and so I had this promo I put on there, and it started with car screeching, and I said, "You may not like what you're about to hear," and then I tell about the horrible statistics of people being killed on holidays because they all went on the road and drove crazy and drank too much, and so they came by the hundreds. I never had to give one away, by the way.
Al, was that, we did a light promotion in El Paso, probably inspired by you. I think the line was, we're giving this away on the 4th of July for Christmas because this many of you will not be here at Christmas time.
Yeah, that was a good line. I didn't use that one, but
Where was Al Anthony's dance party? What market, what TV station?
it was syndicated by people associated with Rounds Television.
Tom Rounds?
No. It was in South Carolina or somewhere. Anyway, all of their stations and whatever other stations they had a relationship with them, it played in all of those stations. And it was a huge success.
But which market were you recording it in? Was that in Bakersfield?
In Bakersfield at
Yeah.
KBAK, where Dick Clark was doing it, where the action is.
Wow.
And I've got so many pictures of that and everything. I don't have any tape whatsoever because we were using the new 2-inch colored tape machine on CBS. And that stuff was like $750 for a half hour of tape. And so they never saved any of it. They just recycled it to bam.
You got any tape on Blackboard Jungle?
Yeah, I don't have any on there either.
Well, you got to tell that story.
I worked in 12 movies, Hollywood features. And how I got there was while I was going to college, I met a friend who was a really good friend of mine, and his dad worked for an advertising agency in LA, one of the biggest ones. And he had connections with MGM. So he got Peter in on it. And then I said, well, how about me? He said, okay, fine. So he got me on the call board. So I don't know, it probably still works like that. But they used to have a big, long whiteboard call board, and they put people's names who were available on there to be not extras, but non-union waivers. In other words, that the union people would sit in a row, about the first, second, maybe third row, and then the non-union waivers would sit in the next few rows, and then the extras would sit in the next rows, and then the rows up in the back were cardboard cutouts. Yeah, we did that, and Paul Newman, somebody up there likes me. It was supposed to be Madison Square Garden, and it was at the Shrine Auditorium in LA. And so how they shot it, here's the square ring, They got all the people in a V, a wedge, starting at the rink and going back a ways with the seats, and then behind that were cardboard cutouts. Then they take another shot from another angle, and they take all of us and mix us all up again and make another wedge. And so we did that every time they changed the scene. Let's see what else. Oh,
Is that the movie with Rock Around the Clock?
yeah.
I remember another one you were in. I can't think of the title.
The one after that, Trial, that was supposed to be a sequel to A Blackboard Jungle. And Love Me or Leave Me with James Cagney and Doris Day. Paul Newman's first movie, which was Somebody Up There Likes Me. And Winchester 73, we did that in Tucson. And I don't know, there's a whole bunch of them, but I don't even remember. There's no part of it that exists anywhere because they've taken all these 2-hour movies and cut them down to about a half an hour, so they got room for all the commercials.
Did you have anything to do with the design of the KFXM studios at the Holiday Inn?
Yeah.
Great layout.
I was working half-time in Bakersfield and half-time in Hollywood at Sunset and Vine. And it was about that time when it was time to move out of the old shack. So Howard and I got together with a guy in Memphis who founded I can't remember his name, but he founded the Holiday Inn chain, the first ones. And so he was looking to look for space in San Bernardino. And so it just turns out that we had like 640 acres out there at the junction of 10 and 15. And so he thought that was an ideal location. So he used to come into Hollywood and we negotiate and so on. And so Howard said, well, he said, I'd sell you the property, but I got a better deal. He said, why don't you build us a radio station on the property, build it for us, and then we'll rent it from you. And the guy thought, wow, that's a hell of an idea. So that's how that happened. But we were working on designing and doing all that stuff from Hollywood. And that's from 1962. And I can't remember when we opened there, 63 maybe. And Howard fired everybody that was working on the air at the shack. And I remember with Gary Price, Cordell was his henchman at the time. He was like his hitman, and he'd incite somebody and say, get that. So Howard always would come in and say, oh, listen to you all the way from Hollywood. Man, he says, yeah, I never heard anything sound so great. Yeah, just great. So he goes in the restroom with Roy Cordell, and he just got through telling Gary Price how great he was. He goes in the restroom and they go in there so nobody could hear him. Gary was sitting in the stall taking a crap while they're talking. And Howard says, you better fire that bitch. And that was the end of him. And he was at that party, by the way, too.
Howard always reminded me of the nearsighted Mr. Magoo. Saddle was Jim Backus with a cigar and everything. Hey, boy, I put you up in San Bernardino for a while until we got an opening in San Diego. That never happened, but we did get Ray Willis out here from Omaha.
Yeah.
Ray was Johnny, did you know Ray Willis, the voice of, got a voice like Gary Owens, not the personality, but got him out here and he started doing freelance stuff. He did voice of Western Airlines and all kinds of stuff. Just walked right into it, no training. Amazing.
Al, you have the ability to bring out the best in people. Now, I remember Dick on KGBS here in Los Angeles after he left KFXM. But Dick, I got to tell you, you never sounded better than when you were on 59.
Yes, that was the freedom that I had there. It was incredible. I don't think Al I don't remember having DJ meetings or him getting on us about format unless we did something too crazy, you know. But I took it pretty seriously. I've seen some of the other videos, guys, you know, that lit that fire for the newsman or whatever. But
You know what I think it was?
what?
Is that we had so much fun in all the hops and stuff and all the side gigs that we did and all the contests and our interaction with the audience. That's the difference between KFXM and Cayman at the time. Anytime I'd answer the phone 100 times an hour. And anytime somebody had a good idea or said something to me, I think, wait a minute, I'm going to put you on the air. And I put them on the air, and what we were talking about, I just resumed the conversation. And that's how I got about 1,000 people to walk between San Bernardino and Riverside. Kid called me from school. And I said, aren't you supposed to be in school? He said, yeah, but I didn't feel like being there today. I don't know. I'm just sitting home and I just feel sad. I said, that's not good. Well, let's see if we can do something. So I went on the air and I said, we got, so-and-so name is sitting at home and he says he's lonely and he just needs some company. So why don't we do something to keep him company? And I said, why don't you go and join him for a walk? And that's started. And it went on and on and on. And that's how it became a big monster walk.
You used to take the jocks to the high schools during their lunches. We'd show up remember, out on the field. Hey, Al, can you do another tell us story? I just, I can't tell it the way you can, but when Howard, I can't even start it. When you saw The Office with Howard, you were walking out towards Western Recorders, just east of Sunset Tower. And there was a recording session going on. And at the time, he had just gotten the Cuervo tequila account out of Mexico. Nobody ever heard of him before. Now you put the ribbons on it.
Yeah, but by that, at that time, everybody thought tequila was something that you take the paint off your car with. And it was awful. And nobody knew what to do with it. So we had already started with the campaigns for that. And we were walking up the stairs in Western Recorders. It was Sunset Studios later. And then it was become Beach something or other. My friend Bob Sides' brother owns it.
Alan Sides?
Yeah.
And Sinatra it was a big studio. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we were walking up the stairs and we heard bum, 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 da-dum, da-dum, and the door was open and they were just rehearsing to play Cerveza. So Howard said, Cerveza, that's Mexican beer. He said, wait a minute. So we went down and talked to Chuck Rio, the owner of the group, and said, why are you using the word Cerveza in a song? He said, well, we like it. And so we just figured we'd throw that in the song. He said, what would it take to get you to use tequila in there?
Ooh.
And he said, you tell me. He said, just a minute. We went upstairs. Howard hit the till. There was $300 cash in there. And I picked up a case of tequila out of the closet. And we went back downstairs and Rio was tickled to death. He couldn't be happier. And so that's how tequila became tequila.
So you used to sing, cerveza. I can't imagine hearing that.
Yeah.
Nobody knew it would be a hit on top of everything else.
Well, we helped it. Let me tell you what we did. We got in the car and we drove from San Diego to San Francisco. We stopped at every radio station that played rock on the way. And we had, let me see. We got 45 records in the jacket. And, the hole in the center of the jacket, we say, hey, we have a record here we think you'd like. It's going to be a big hit. They're playing it everywhere. They're playing it in LA. We sure like to have you take a chance and play this for us. I said, well, he said, well, here, just take the record and you can, make up your mind. We have $100 bill corners sticking into the center. And we did that all the way up and down the coast, and it worked.
Well, that's a standard now. It's a all-time hit.
And it became the theme song for Pee Wee Herman.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, but of course, look where it came from.
Howard also had Kahlua. I remember he was the agency for Kahlua, right?
Yeah, and he had Pop-Off vodka, several other vodkas. How he got all that stuff was he was pals with Vernon Underwood, who's the CEO of Santa Anita and also the owner of a liquor importing company, the largest one in the world. And so through him, he got Howard tied up with these guys, and so it took care of getting him all those accounts. And on the tequila program, I don't know if you guys ever saw this, but Sam Katz was our artist who came in and did work. Howard used to chain him to the desk, a little old Jewish guy, and he was the artist. And Howard used to chain him to the desk, and then and had, well, as a matter of fact, he's the guy that drew our tiger.
Oh, and the cuttings are that beautiful ship on the side of the Thunderbirds that the sales guys took out.
Yes, that. Sam Katz used to do that at every single ad they ever ran. They never used the same painting of the Cutty Sark. It was original every time. So they came up with the Tequila Girls, and there were 12 women. They needed 12 most beautiful women in the world, and Katz was going to do paintings of them, and then they'd run them in the ads for tequila. So we didn't use any models. We sat there for a couple of hours, and we got all the magazines we could hold, and sat down and started, look, here's a beautiful girl, bam, bam. And we start cutting out pictures of beautiful girls. And then we paste up the eyes on one with a nose and then a mouth from another one. And we made up our own girls. And they were beautiful. I don't know how we could probably look them up and get to see them again. But they hung in our office in Hollywood. And it was a monster. The only copy they used was Margarita, more than the girl's name.
So just to backtrack for a second now, Tiger Radio. Who came up with that concept of Tiger Radio?
Well, the tiger was everywhere. Tiger paw tires, Tiger gas, everything. Tigers.
Tony the Tiger, right?
Exxon?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was like the biggest hit everywhere. So everything was Tiger. So I found a guy in Pasadena that used to make stuffed animals. And so I think Buck Owens had that song at the time, "A Tiger by the Tail."
Right.
And so I traded out about 500 of those tails, and you stick them in the gas door, and they had a little hook on them, and they'd be hanging out of the gas cap out of all the cars going by. There were thousands of them. And then he started making those big 3 or 4, 5 footers. I don't know how big they were. You remember the big giant tigers?
Yeah.
Okay. But he made them the same way, and we traded out for them, and we gave them away, and everybody went crazy for those things. It just like everywhere. And I got a lot of pictures when I get to show them to you of people winning tigers and so on, and the looks on their faces. It was just great. So anyway, we just decided we were going to adopt a tiger. And I think, Don, you mentioned that Barry Boyd worked at a station in Canada that had tiger logo.
TJCA.
Yeah. And so we just went with that, and we just figured, well, let's do it. So we sat in the office, and Sam drew the tiger, and then I got it out to all the stations. I got it and all the tune sheets, all the promos, and then my own Tiger Mag, and it was all. And then Al Barnett was working for us, and he managed to get us the live Tiger, and that was probably one of the greatest hits of all. Today they'd shoot us for that.
They
I'm
would.
scared to death of that thing. Tiger
Yeah,
Mag.
Rocco.
that's right. Yeah, at Christmas party, when we took that picture by the swimming pool of all the employees there, Jocko was sitting down in front, and Dick was sitting a little ways to the side. And you can tell him your story, Dick.
Well, he was on a chain, and Al Barnett was sort of out of the picture a little bit. It was a Christmas picture with the whole employees, and the jocks were in front. And of course, Jocko, who was about 500 pounds at that time, was sitting in front of me. And he was like Siegfried and Roy, he was not trained as well as those cats, but he was able to eat you alive. And it's just one chain, and Al's pulling on it, and the cameraman's waiting to take the picture. And I'm sitting there pretty calm because I'd grown up when I started working at KFXM. The Tiger weighed 50 pounds. And I walked down the hall, and the Tiger comes running at me. They said, "Watch out, he's really strong. He'll knock you over." But he was playful and not like a cat, but you respected him. So Jocko's sitting there and finally holding still. They start taking the picture, and Jocko reaches up with his claw and catches my pant leg of my beautiful blue suit.
Yeah, it was. I know it was a houndstooth suit. I remember that suit. It was beautiful. He just got it for Christmas.
It was a nice suit. Anyway, and his claws were razor sharp, just like a razor. And it went all the way down my leg and missed my leg, I don't know, by a fraction of an inch. I could have really been hurt. And Bob Bonnell, who was the general manager at the time, or sales manager, never could figure that out because Al ran the station. I said, I want a new suit. He said, "Oh, just get it fixed, Good luck. You're not gonna. So I never argued about him. But Al, you had a special touch with your disc jockeys. I know guys talk about they're going for a raise and they argue with you and all this stuff.
Oh, those were good days.
I never experienced that. I only remember being late, never to my air shift, which I've said before, but just you want to be there 3 hours before my air shift to do production. So I come in a few minutes late, and you just went through the roof. But I never was frightened, even when you're pounding on your desk as hard as you could, like you pounded on the steering wheel after the party with Irwin's and your watch explodes all over. You say, "Look, now you broke my watch." But I never had fear of you. It was like I felt comfortable that I was there. I never thought in a minute that you would ever let me go. It was just a great feeling of freedom, and you had all the records there. We could pick our own records, pick oldies 4 times an hour, whatever, out of a box. And you had it organized so we wouldn't be playing the same one the guy that had the shift before me would go back to the box. Right. But everything was so organized and so terrific. How did you come up with the echo chamber? Was that from New York, WMCA or WABC? Because you were the only station that I knew in Southern California that had the echo chamber on the microphone.
Yeah, we had it at all 3 stations. It was one of those old-fashioned springs that used to
once in a while you kick it and it goes boing.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. I had the Tiger Roar, though.
And you just made me think of something. God, we could go on forever and ever and ever, especially as long as it's about me.
Of course.
Again, it was like just our relationship with the audience. I have pictures of our very, very first hop at a place called the Barn in Bakersfield. And it was pretty crude, but we wore ties, suits and ties at the hops. And all the times when we were on stage, I know you were, Jhani, you were at some too. and I don't know you, Don, but I used to have everybody get dressed to come to work at the station, suits and ties.
Part of the Al Anthony magic of KFXM, you had your hand on the pulse of the community. I mean, when Batman was popular, I remember the studio became the Bat Cave with the bat signal there for the on-the-air light. It was just, I don't know. Do you have any idea, Al? I mean, do you fully realize how many guys' lives you touched by giving them the opportunity to be on those signals?
I thought about it, and it's. I'll tell you what I think. First, I have to think part of that. I used to stop and think about how many babies I made.
Oh God!
By playing their records and so on, and while they were listening to the record, they were making babies, and I'm sure I'm responsible for a lot of them.
Dick, did you ever get a call? Al had one of the, and Don, Al had one of the first car phones way before anyone else. And he would even call me sometimes. He'd be on vacation in Hawaii. He goes, I'm at the Sheraton in Hawaii. I'm watching guys surf at midnight. And it's so beautiful, Jhani. You're sounding great. You're bouncing in out here.
Could you really hear it there? I don't even get KFI there.
You wouldn't know.
Howard called me on his cell phone, it wasn't a cell phone then, in Bakersfield when I was doing mornings on the weekends, overnights during the week, and asked me to get some people down to the station because he had Eastman with him and wanted to sell the station. And it was like a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning early. And I think I told the story about the pens in the salesman's office. And I gathered about a dozen and said, free pens, the first 12 people. So Howard pulls up in his Thunderbird with John Eastman. And there was 50 people by the window in the middle of the field. So Howard gave me a referral to Al and said, give Al a call. You're pretty good. And Al hired me. I was the only one after they sold the station. And I was really thrilled because that's the station that I always wanted to work for.
A couple of things I used to think about too is everybody gave away turkeys at Thanksgiving. And so I figured, let's do something different about it. So I was the one who started throwing the turkeys out of the helicopter.
Oh, God.
But they were frozen, and we were only like 20 feet above the air when we did it. So, and we did a couple of waves of it, and we said, okay, we'll be back in 2 hours, so we'd come back if you want to try again. So they came all back. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of them. But they came back in football helmets, shoulder pads, and everything to protect them from the turkeys falling down on them. And between the fighting for getting them, because it never was easy and it never was kind. It was always rough. And then another time, I figured bunnies. People love bunny at Easter time. So at Easter, I gave the idea, I'm going to have a bunny hunt. So Bill Hernandez, we went out at night and we had all these bunnies. And I said, well, we'll put tags on their neck and they're all worth money, $10, $50, $100 or something like that. So you catch the rabbits and bring in the tags, and we'll give you the money. It looked great at the time. It felt like great at the time, and it went over really big. I got one more story to tell you about animals.
Go for it.
Easter time. People like to have great Easter egg hunts and give away Easter eggs. I mean, I got the idea, why give eggs? Why don't I just give away little live baby chicks? So I went to the feed store or whatever, and I bought like 400 chicks in their little trays. And I had the idea, I'm going to put them in a control room And so every time you open the mic, you hear cheep, 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 cheep. And we thought it was a lot of fun. Pretty soon they started stinking like hell. You couldn't even stay in the control room with them. So I didn't know what to do with him. So I put him in Paul Battisti's office. He was the manager then. He comes in off the street and he goes into his office and he comes back. And he said, God damn you. And he just let me have it because it was awful. It's really stunk. So I finally decided to record the chicks and play the recording on the mic with, when we went on the mic. Okay. Day came and I was advertising promos, the hell out of them. And we were going to have them come out a certain time to the Catholic radio station. And we are going to give away all these baby chicks. So comes the date for the chick giveaway. We went out to the disc jockeys, each took a tray of the chicks and went out the back door of the station and around to the front. And we had it roped off. And they all stood up with the ropes and so on and backed up okay. And I put a microphone on the roof. And so we were on the roof taking care of the crowd and talking about the chicks and so on the air. So they came and they had bags and boxes and every kind of mail boxes and lunch boxes. And they came because they all wanted a chick. There were thousands of people that came. It was just, it was so great. You could turn that microphone on and make people do anything you wanted them to do. What a feeling that was. And that's what I think, like you were saying, what's important is the way you acted to people and what you gave them, or you made them laugh, or you did something that that they really liked, or if nothing else, play their great records.
Well, I have a question, Al, if you don't mind. The 7-car sweepstakes, the Oldsmobile Toronado you traded out with KFXM all over it, and came out, and they said, oh, we're going to give away 7-car sweepstake. And you said, well, how about we do 59 cars for $590? They came back, they were 129 different choices of cars. And I asked you, I said, Al, how are you going to get these other cars? Don't worry, they'll take the Oldsmobile Toronado. I'll give them a bunch of trade, free gas for a year, whatever I got to do to get them to take the car. But I think from what I heard recently, and I didn't know about this at the time, that you had some kind of lunch with the manager at Cayman and you made a pact never to give cars away again.
Yeah, Jerry Jolson. And that was all prompted by Hollywood. He said, well, where are we going to go with this? You got to stop. And it was out of control. And the way we'd say, I'm going to give away 59 cars, I say, and I just bury your choice and just keep saying 59.
The choice of one of. I remember yeah, God.
Yeah, but that was a incredible promotion. That Oldsmobile Toronado was the car then. It was a new model.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones off the line.
Right.
It was a spectacular car. What was different about it? I forgot. Well, because it was front-wheel drive. I guess that was
front-wheel drive, right?
Yeah.
Big engine.
A big monster engine and a front-wheel drive, and that was really avant-garde at the time.
It was a warm summer